The thrill of a ride at the local fair is something candidates running in this federal election may not get to experience. The campaign certainly has its ups and its downs. Each candidate attempting to bump the others out of the picture. And the candidates have come here to the Port-Alberni Fair to gather votes in a riding that is seen as a key to electoral success. Courtenay-Alberni is a new riding added to mid-Vancouver Island. Its makeup is a combination of forestry and fishing towns such as Port-Alberni, burgeoning retirement communities including Courtenay, Qualicum Beach and Parksville, and its landscape is dotted with lakes, soaring vistas and coastlines on the east and west of the riding, making it perfect for ecotourists in towns such as Tofino and Ucluelet. And it's in this new riding that Conservative Minister John Duncan has chosen to run. Currently the incumbent of the riding next door, Duncan has been very busy leading up to the election campaign, handing out millions of dollars in checks all over Vancouver Island. Analysts believe that Duncan has a slight edge in Courtenay-Alberni, but unfortunately, through his representatives, John Duncan says he's too busy campaigning to be interviewed for this program. Hoping to stop the Conservatives is Liberal Carrie Powell-Davidson, who has been working the riding for a year, knocking on doors and holding meetings in local coffee shops with potential voters and supporters. So, Carrie, you're not new to politics. First time you're running federally, but you have been a councillor in Parksville.
That's correct. I did 2 terms to the city of Parksville.
What is it that drew you to politics?
Politics in the first place, or federal politics?
Period.
Well, politics in the first place, I was always very heavily involved in my communities, both as a volunteer, as a small business owner, as a mom, and I was making as much of a difference as I could, and then I just felt it was time to make that next step. And for many women, myself included, it took someone to say, you should be in politics.
Do you think it's tougher for women than it is for men in politics?
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. For one thing, women need to be asked a lot more often to get to run, and they need to be heavily supported. Men have, very, very busy lives too, but often the child care, the management of the home and the job and everything falls on a woman. So for them to make that decision, they really have a lot of looking at the other aspects of their life and how to balance that.
So this is a new riding, Courtenay-Alberni.
It is.
Obviously, incumbent John Duncan running here. You've got the Greens and the NDP. So is this one of those races where it can go any way, do you think? Or?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and we're seeing that nationally too. It definitely could go any way. People are ready for a change. What the Liberal Party is bringing forward is as a result of the past few years of conversations and meeting people and finding out what's concerning them and getting their input on those solutions. So our plan is solid, and we're proposing a whole new Canada that people are really gravitating towards.
Is that message resonating at the local level? I mean, we know that obviously the national campaigns really kind of govern what's going on at the local level, but it seems that the issues locally can be vastly different than maybe what the leaders and the general populace across the country is paying attention to.
Well, every community is a little bit different, and they all have unique aspects to them that are concerning to their residents. But there's a lot of the broader issues that are relative in all of our communities. So, for example, jobs for younger people is pretty much the commonality in every community in the Courtenay-Alberni riding. But it's very prevalent and very important in Port-Alberni, whereas here in Courtenay, senior services might be a little bit more important, and some of the infrastructure projects, and certainly that's true. The same is true for Parksville-Qualicum area.
The NDP's Gord Johns is a former Tofino councillor, a Chamber of Commerce executive and entrepreneur. He is also counting on his connection to the riding will deliver a victory on election night.
My great-grandparents met in Cumberland in the 20s. They came to Vancouver Island at the turn of the last century. In fact, my great-grandfather's uncle was Alexander Stewart, who was the mayor of Victoria that built Camosun College. So it goes way back, and they ended up going up to Ocean Falls, Central Coast, forestry family, before returning back to Vancouver Island. My grandma And my mom and her brother and sister, they went to school actually in communities here in this riding, in Parksville, Qualicum, Port-Alberni, and then later they moved to Victoria, where I was born and raised. So, you know, my history in this riding is long and deep, and the connection to it is long and deep. So it's really what helps inspire me around running for politics and for the work I've done in my life.
Johns is known for never missing an opportunity to reach out to a potential voter, whether it's in his campaign office or on the beach in Parksville. He is well versed with his party's message, in many ways similar to that of his rivals. So I guess you're hoping for the winds of change, Gord.
Absolutely. It's time. People are ready for change, and they're calling for change. We're hearing that loud and clear.
Why run now? What is it about this election that really inspired you to kind of take on the role of wanting to be Courtenay-Alberni's new MP?
Well, I think just watching the damage that Stephen Harper and the Conservatives have done. They failed us on the environment, to protect the environment. They've gutted protection for the environment. They failed to deliver the jobs that they promised, and their economic policies have failed us altogether. They failed to protect Aboriginal rights and title.
These are hearing that issues. When you hit the door here, or is that just the national campaign voice coming over on your message?
No, it's really true. I mean, people on Vancouver Island and certainly in Courtenay-Alberni, they're very concerned about the economy. They're feeling the effects of the downturn in the economy. They're feeling the failure to protect the environment. They're very nervous. I mean, this environment that we're walking, this beach that we're walking next to, the environment is the basis and foundation for our economy and for our social well-being on Vancouver Island. And certainly they're concerned about things that matter the most, that identify us as Canadians, and that's taking care of each other, like our healthcare system that's been threatened. And in this election, there's a lot of issues, and it's a very important election, a lot at stake, and certainly things that everything from CBC, the protection of important services for seniors and vets, and our place in the world. So,
what's going to be the challenge for you as you go through this campaign?
I think the biggest challenge is it's a large riding, getting out and reaching each community. I've had the opportunity of being in a contest where I was nominated a year ago. So I've been out on the campaign trail for a whole year. And I've been outreaching to all communities, from the smallest to the largest. And again, the message is connecting with people. Our platform is connecting with people. They're ready for change, and we've got a really strong platform that people can connect with, and they know that it's going to bring and lift people on Vancouver Island out of the difficult situation we're in.
Relatively new to the political game is Glenn Solid, who is running for the Greens. He too has been working in the riding for the past year, and like his opponents, highlights his roots in the community. This is an area that's pretty familiar to you.
Very familiar. I spent every single summer in Barclay Sound. Start at the beginning of the summer down in Bamfield and finish every August right here, right at the stock in Port-Alberni.
As a fisherman?
As a fisherman, yeah. I fished one of these boats here.
And that's how you paid your way through university?
Yeah, that's how I paid my way through everything for about 15 years. I began fishing my own boat when I was about 15. I wasn't old enough to drive a car, but I could fish a boat. And yeah, that took me all the way through mechanical engineering at UBC.
And now you have your own seafood business, right?
Yes, I had an engineering job for about 15 years doing process automation with big mills. But yeah, I've ended up back in the seafood business in a different way. I have a wholesale seafood business, so I buy and export largely to Eastern Canada.
I'm asking everyone this, but for you, tell me, why run and why now?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Why now? I think I'm at the stage of life that I can finally do it. I'm 50 years old, and we have 3 children, and they're all at university now. So we're empty nesters, so it's the first time that family-wise I have the time. I think that why? It probably out of a level of frustration, to be honest. I've always been a very active voter. I've always been, I try to be very well-informed politically. And over the last several years, I've just found myself despondent, largely the beginning to sort of upset with decisions that were being made, and then more so the decision-making process. And of course, I'm a huge advocate of voting. I've always voted, but you have to have something to vote for. And I found for myself personally, the last couple of elections, I found it harder and harder to find someone that I wanted to vote for.
So the Green Party is seen as a relatively new party,
yes,
compared to the traditional three, the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the NDP.
Yeah.
And so you weren't always a Green.
No, definitely not.
Did you ever affiliate with any other party before? Or?
No, I voted for a few different parties. I've never been a member of a party until I joined to be with the Green Party.
The Greens, like the NDP, believe they can win most of the 7 seats on Vancouver Island.
This is my 3rd time in to campaign with Glenn, and we've done multiple communities every time I come.
And you're coming again?
Yes.
The party is pulling out all the stops, capitalizing on leader Elizabeth May's popularity, who is running for re-election in another riding on Vancouver Island.
Looks to me like, this is Elizabeth May running in every single riding on Vancouver Island. You look at the posters, and there you are.
But it's not me without the candidates are the focus. And we have superb candidates, not just on Vancouver Island, but I say every one of the candidates on Vancouver Island is superb. And every one of the candidates on Vancouver Island can win. But yes, there's no question that just the geography makes it much more possible for me to nip out and go do an event with Joanne Roberts or Fran Hunt-Janucci, or come up and help Glenn or Paul or Brenda Sayers. All of the 7 ridings on Vancouver Island have, we're friends. We're extraordinarily pleased with the way the campaigns are going. We're building public support. So I do spend time on Vancouver Island.
And the strategy appears to be working. Hundreds, as opposed to dozens of people, are now turning up at party events. And the Greens say its polling shows it's a two-way race on Vancouver Island. But there are concerns.
The only thing that worries me is people being fed false information at the last minute and being frightened into panicking and voting against what they want. Even in my own riding, I have people come up to me and say they've been told by the NDP that it's really important to vote strategically and not vote for me, even though they voted for me last time and think my work has been great and they're very proud and happy to have had me as their member of parliament. This time they think they don't know what strategic means. It sounds like you can't vote for what you want.
And that could be a real concern.
That's why I feel like it needs to be more of a strategic vote, maybe as opposed to where my personal leanings are, if that makes any sense.
It's so hard because it's a long election. I'm undecided. I'm not solid. Let's just say I'm not solid on what I want to vote for right now.
And that appears to be a reoccurring theme in the riding. Many voters we spoke to want change, but not sure of what change they want.
Just kind of sitting around having your arguments, your debates, or your agreements.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things are you hearing?
There's a little bit of, we all really actually like Justin Trudeau, but we think that he is immature, so it's risky. But we all want to vote for him, but it's whether or not we do is going to come down to if he can sort of, if he's outplaying the other players, right?
I think maybe the time has come for maybe having someone in power that's a little more people-oriented, that cares about people, that doesn't just care about the next election. So I think that's something that I bear in mind. I'd think, do I like this person? Do I like them as a person? Could I be a friend of theirs? I don't look at someone, I don't think, well, he's super intelligent. They're all intelligent people. But I want someone that's a little kinder in power.
What some may see as an issue, Carrie Powell-Davidson, not surprisingly, sees as an asset.
I noticed at the door using the term Team Trudeau and mentioning Justin Trudeau's name a lot. Is that one of your biggest assets, do you think, for the riding, your campaign here in this riding?
Well, what I found out very early on in my campaign, I've been at this for, a year now, is that a lot of people were not really clear on the difference between provincial and federal politics, or they didn't understand the difference between the provincial Liberals and the federal Liberals. And so we found it necessary to be more specific, but not in an educational way, not in a way that maybe embarrassed them for their lack of knowledge on federal politics. So what we did is we started introducing our campaign as Team Trudeau, because one thing's for certain, everybody knows who Mr. Trudeau is.
So I'm kind of getting from that then, there's a bit of, what you've said, there's a bit of an underlying theme there that you don't want to be confused with the provincial Liberals.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I think I wouldn't want to be confused with anyone. We're trying to win a campaign for the federal Liberal Party, so we need to be absolutely crystal clear who the federal Liberal Party is.
And what about a poll came out recently that said the campaign ads that were running, Trudeau is not ready. were kind of sticking a little bit. Are you finding that, or I mean, you know, or at the door, are you finding something different?
I'm finding a lot of people are find that ad insulting. They're disgusted by it, and they will poke fun at it. They're not taking it seriously. They're sick of seeing it. They're sick of the dirty politics and the insulting advertising. And most people I talk to are very, very impressed with the way the Liberal Party came back, and Mr. Trudeau in that commercial saying, "I'll tell you what I'm just not ready for." They thought that was classy, they thought that was positive, and they were glad that we weren't jumping into that dirty pool.
So let's play a bit of that right now with you and your campaign in here. If the biggest misconception of Carrie Powell-Davidson in Courtenay-Alberni is...
Gee, I don't quite know how to answer that. I would have to say that a lot of people probably think that I don't exist or that the Liberal Party has no presence. Not a lot of people, but if I had to think of the biggest misconception, that would probably be it, because we don't have our signs up yet. And that's part of our strategy, and it's working extremely well for us. So I have read the odd snippet in the newspaper, or I have heard from people that, you know, the Liberals don't exist in this riding. We've been extremely busy going door to door, meeting people, building the relationships. We're doing the hard work, basically old-fashioned campaigning, and it is paying off. But if there was a misconception, I would have to say that would be it.
And your biggest asset?
Biggest asset? Is me. People just, you know what? I love people. I love meeting them. I love chatting with them. I love listening to them. I think communication will be huge for people. They don't feel like they've been listened to. They don't feel like they've got someone who's in touch with, you know, Joe Average Citizen in our federal level. So being the person who's used to working at the community level and taking people's concerns, hearing them, really communicating with them, I think that's the biggest asset for us.
All the candidates acknowledge they're battling negative perceptions. For the NDP's Gord Johns, he says it's economic policies.
I think that certainly has been a fear-based tactic by the Conservatives. It's not true, actually. The NDP's had very good economic success. They've balanced budgets across Canada. Overall, they've had the best success rate of balancing budgets when you look at provincial budgets for any political party. So when people do their research, the NDP governments have actually had great success. When we look at Conservative governments, it's been the complete opposite. I mean, Stephen Harper's government has accumulated a deficit of $150 billion under his watch. They call themselves fiscal money managers, but they haven't done that. They haven't created the jobs that they promised. Mulroney's government was the same. And when we look at Mulroney and Harper together, they've created this sizable chunk of today's deficit. And really, our children are going to be slaves to the past, financially, environmentally. They've gutted Canada's environmental laws. They've exposed us to clean up environmental messes for future generations. And they haven't invested in community medicine and supported health care. So there's going to be huge health deficits as well. So our children are going to be slaves to the past and huge deficits. So we need to start to mitigate the damage that's being done and then start tackling these issues and making sure that we protect future generations.
When you look at the rest of the country, and you say you travel a lot to Vancouver Island, what's unique about Courtenay-Alberni? Someone sitting in Ottawa, someone sitting in Quebec, someone sitting in St. John, Newfoundland, they're going to say to themselves, okay, what's different? Why is this done right?
The diversity. I mean, it's an incredible diversity here. Again, the median age in Parksville-Qualicum is 63 in Qualicum, 58 in Parksville, and in Tofino it's 34, and in Cumberland it's 37, right? In Alberni Valley you've got an aging population, but a high Aboriginal population as well. And we have many small communities, Aboriginal communities, island communities, really different priorities, but again, a lot of things in common. Affordable housing, healthcare, CBC, these things that connect us. There's many of them, and certainly the failure to create jobs and the failure to protect our coast. We share those things, and that's what really is important to us. The marine environment, coastal communities, the culture here is very rich. We have that in common. as Vancouver Islanders, and certainly people in Courtenay-Alberni, that we live in a marine culture, a Vancouver Island culture, where we value the environment and the protection of the environment. It's our way of life, you know. It's part of our recreation, it's part of our economy, and it's part of our social well-being. It's our makeup, and that's what differentiates us from other areas in the country.
The NDP is putting the environment front and centre in its platform in Courtenay-Alberni. That may be due to the perception the Greens are gaining strength. One local newspaper believes it is turning into a two-way race in the riding between the Greens and the NDP.
And that does seem in keeping with our letter writers, that they fed up with the old party line, let's say. They are showing some enthusiasm for NDP and Green. But provincially it looks very close between NDP Liberals and Conservatives, so it's hard to know how to take these things sometimes.
When do you think people are going to start really paying attention here in Courtenay-Alberni?
As fall approaches, next month it's really gonna start hitting. Now, kids are back to school, things are cooling down a bit. The letters are starting to come in more frequently though, and yeah, you get some good debate going back and forth in the paper.
Glenn Solid acknowledges for the Greens to pull off a win, he must overcome the doubt in voters' minds. But he says the tide is turning.
It's a largely traditional conservative bastion, and there's the vast majority of them are looking for change. And there's a lot of angst in the voters' mind right now because they don't know where to put their vote. There's a large percentage that are still undecided, not happy with the way they voted the last 2 or 3 times, and don't like the apparent choices in front of them. So,
what's the stumbling block that you have to overcome though when you get to the door? I mean, are people still responding to you as a candidate that's running from a party that essentially is governed by, and I mean this politely, people, you know, in dreadlocks and that have been camping out back. I mean, the Green Party has really changed its image.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you still battling that kind of perception?
Absolutely, and the party's battling that image in real time and having to do it very, very quickly. It was only just a couple of elections ago that was the entire group. And there's a lot of value in the heritage of the Green Party. That environmental activism is a very important part of the party and always needs to be there. However, to really make change, you need to win seats. And the party has to be more mainstream. And
then I wonder, like in a town where we are now, in Port-Alberni, the question then becomes, how does that resonate with blue-collar workers, guys that are working in the mine, guys that are working in forestry, for instance, that may not totally embrace the Green platform as far as environment.
And to a large, I mean, that's an understatement. For a lot of people, they would see the Green Party as an obstacle to their own employment. You know, they're worried that the Green Party is going to, you know, that if I'm elected, I'll chain myself to a tree.
Can you overcome that?
Yes, because that's not the way I am. I mean, I've made my living my entire life I've been self-employed or working as an engineer, deriving my income out of our environment. So be it fishing, when I was an engineer, it was in the forestry industry. I worked in pulp mills. So we need to harvest trees to make jobs. So the Green Party is fully supportive of an active economy. It's the biggest part of our platform is on job creation. And for a lot of people, that's a shock to them. But what's reassuring to me, and what's really nice, is how quickly they'll accept their newfound understanding of the Green Party. They come up to speed very, very quickly. 2 things in our favor in our chances of winning in this riding is the early start that we had, building the foundation. We opened our first office in April of this year. That's a long time ago. That was in Courtenay. So we've been establishing a foundation for a long time. The other thing I think that's really helping us is the early writ drop. The extension of the campaign period has been fantastic because it's shone the spotlight on the election process. The rest of Canada now knows that the election is on. I got better traction last winter. I think with lousy weather, people would come out to town halls more likely in last November and March than they did in the summer. June, July, and August is a really hard time to do a political campaign. Nobody cares, and rightly so. Everyone has their lives. As soon as the writ dropped, boom, it was on. The writ dropped on a Sunday. On the Monday, I did 4 interviews. Well, I hadn't done 4 interviews in the previous 2 months. So now for the same amount of work, because we were already working very hard, but now for the same amount of work, we just get way more bang for the buck because so many people are watching.
Are you ready to go if you win? Do you realize the momentous change in your life for you and your family and your future as a politician?
Yeah. I don't know. I think so. Both my wife and I have always embraced change and embraced risk. Both of us love challenges. She's self-employed as well. She runs a business providing service to children with autism. We like to travel. We like to do new things. So yes, we spoke a lot about this, and we have 3 grown children. As a family, we talked an awful lot about the change, not knowing what that change would look like, but we all just agreed, yeah, we're up for it. We'll handle it.
We're in the middle of the road again, which is not a safe thing to do.
In an election campaign, political watchers say that may actually be the safest place to be. Carrie Powell-Davidson has no illusions that with weeks before the election, there are still many roads she has to travel.
Everyone says there's a lot of travel between here and Ottawa for people on Vancouver Island, any MP. I mean, are you ready for that? Is your family ready for that?
Well, my family is very ready. In fact, it's my husband and our 2 adult kids who've had their feet on my back pushing me to do this for many years. And so absolutely they're ready. The kids are grown, they're launched in successful careers. My husband is actually our sign coordinator. I know that sounds ironic because the signs aren't up yet. But that's part of the strategy. No, everybody is very, very supportive. And I gave up all my work. I did not run in the last local government election to do this 24/7. And since basically October when I became the candidate, I have been doing this 24/7. And we have the most amazing team. And we're all working very hard together. Even my daughter from Saskatoon, her and her boyfriend are working on this campaign.
The NDP's Gord Johns is ready too.
It's a huge decision to run. It took 18 months to make a decision to run. I consulted everybody from the board of directors from the Chamber of Commerce, who fully supported me, to my family, obviously, first and foremost, and even my friends, because I needed to make sure they had my back.
Do your children understand what commitment it's going to be if you're successful?
I think they've got a good idea after the last year of campaigning. They have a really good idea because I've spent so much time on the road. I mean, this riding is so big and so vast that, really I'd been on the road for the better part of the last year.
Do they ever say to you, Daddy, when are you going to be home? I miss you. And
yeah, we have to find that work-life balance, and we work really hard at it. And I do spend very little time alone. Spend a lot of my time either, working on campaign or with my children. And I have no issues with that. That's where my priorities are.
All 3 candidates agree their lives have changed. A change brought on by a wild ride. And for the victor, on October 19th, that will mean someone getting off the merry-go-round of federal politics or someone climbing on.